financial advisor. Nothing said here tonight is financial advice. All investments have risk and nothing is ever guaranteed, so please do your own research before you make any investments. Remember to never invest more than you're willing and able to lose. We have Bitcoin donation addresses on each of the tables. If you're interested in helping our group continue to spread our message across the state of Iowa, please consider making a small donation. This group is entirely member funded, so we greatly appreciate that. Last but not least is the attendance sheet, which has made the rounds pretty well. If you haven't signed in, please do so, just so we can get an accurate count of how many people we have here tonight. You can also fill in your email address to be added to our monthly newsletter. We'll send out information regarding our upcoming meetings so you know what's coming, what we're going to be talking about, what guest speakers we're going to have, etc. You can also check yes if you'd like to be added to our Slack channel. That's where we hang out in between our 2 monthly meetings. Pretty great place to come hang out, pick our brains, ask questions, keep the discussion going about crypto. And then you can also circle what topics you're interested in, and we'll try and plan our future meetings towards those topics so you guys can actually learn things that you're interested in. With that out of the way, as I mentioned, we have Brent joining us tonight. He's going to talk about how the US dollar kind of came to be the global reserve currency, some of the shortfalls of the US dollar, such as FATCA, FBAR, and US sanctions, and then also about triggers for a global economic crisis, which is something we hear a lot about. I think this will be an interesting topic because we think back to the cypherpunk movement, and these are some of the ideas that kind of spurred the creation of cryptocurrency itself. People wanted to escape, the separation of state and money. They wanted to be able to control their own destiny and be able to not be coerced by governments and people with large amounts of power. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Brent Russell.
So for the past few years, actually starting in about 2008 when I watched everything crash. Fortunately, I wasn't really invested in the markets that much when that happened. But I watched everyone else lose a lot of their the value and everything that they had. So I really started keeping an eye on the markets. I stayed a lot in cash. Kind of a big mistake in the past 10 years. Everything's just been going crazy. But now I'm seeing how people are just on all-time highs. Everything's so high, and people are still throwing their money in. And a lot of the warnings that people, financial advisors, give to people is, hey, watch when people are still dumping their money, and when it's all-time high, they ignore all the signs of underlying weakness. So that's kind of what inspired me to give this talk right now. We saw that in Bitcoin when it went really, really high. I mean, everybody saw what happened. That came down. People just ignored all technical analysis. So hopefully you had some chance to read some of these quotes. I want to kind of focus on the last one. I really like that one. It was by Henry Ford. It says, "It is well enough that people of the nation do not understand our banking and monetary system. Or if they did, I believe there would be a revolution before tomorrow morning." To really understand the US dollar and a lot of economics, you really have to understand supply and demand. Some people kind of understand the supply and demand a little bit, but I thought this graph is really good to understand how it works. The more demand that there is for something, the higher the price goes, as long as the supply stays the same. If you increase the supply a lot, the price starts to go down, because if demand stays the same, then the supply, if the demand stays the same and the supply goes way up, then you don't have enough people to go out and buy all the products. So a good example of this is, like, if you're in the desert and there's 10 people in the desert and they're holding one bottle of water, that bottle of water is going to go for $80,000. It's going to be really expensive. The minute you dump a lot of water onto everybody, 10,000 bottles of water, nobody's going to pay anything for that water because it's just an abundant supply everywhere. We see in stocks, crypto, you see supply and demand every single day. So in stocks, if you have a stock that is worth $2,000 and there's a million shares that are out there, and it's $2,000. Now the company, they want to bring in more people, but not everybody has $2,000 per share just to throw in. So they do a stock split. They double supply to 2 million, and immediately everybody gets two shares for every one that they had, and the price comes down to $1,000. So that plays on supply and demand. Crypto has finite supply, so as demand goes up, the price goes up. When demand goes away, the price comes down. There's no changing of that supply, so it's playing with the supply and demand. Nickelback CDs, like, and the early 2000s, that was a big thing. They were $25. Everyone liked Nickelback. I don't know what happened to Nickelback, but for some reason nobody likes Nickelback anymore. Not only that, people don't do CDs, so I'm sure you could go buy a Nickelback CD for like $4.99 now. There's no supply.
Inflated to 50 cents.
What's that?
I thought Nickelback got inflated to 50 cents.
Yeah, maybe it did. Inflated to 50 cents.
I thought we were listening to Nickelback on the way down here, man.
No, so, expensive 20 rupee internet. I went to Nepal and I went to the Himalayan mountains a while back, and I walked for 6 days uphill. And in the middle of nowhere, my legs were hurting me so bad. There was no electricity. It would come every now and then when you're in small little towns, but it would cut off all the time and come back on. It was so remote. That's where I was right there when I kind of got near the top. And I came to this little village, Poon Hill, and I was desperate for internet. And they did have internet there. But first thing I did is I went and I got myself a hotel room. My hotel room was 300 rupees. That's roughly $3, give or take 50 cents, I don't know. But that room came with a meal also. So I got food and I got a place to stay for about $3. Then I went down and I went to go use the internet and I saw 200 rupees for internet. I was like, that's ridiculous, because I pay 300 rupees for a meal and a place to stay. I'm not paying 200 rupees for internet. This is ridiculous. Now, some people say, well, Brent, what? It's $2. I mean, come on, you come from the US and you come from a different economy, just pay the $2. Well, that's where supply and demand comes in. There's no ATM machines up there. So the supply is just what's in my pocket. And I only had about $25 worth of rupees in my pocket. And I had to have that in order to get back down. I had to walk 6 days back down also. So I didn't use internet because of my supply. Even though all my money was back in the bank down there, I don't have any access to it. So the supply became a whole different situation. So it was kind of a really, really different economy up there because we have no supply to the money that's out there. It's kind of interesting. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what a reserve currency is. Reserve currency is something Somalian pirates. I use this example because we see in movies, Somalian pirates, they don't, in the movies when they kidnap one of the ship captains of a major carrier, they don't get out there and say, I want 10 billion Moroccan dirhams, or I want, 2 million Vietnamese dong. They don't say that. They always say, I want $5 million. They've never been in the United States. They don't do anything in the United States. So why do they want dollars? Because they know it can be exchanged anywhere in the world. They know it's liquid. It can be moved around. Everything's priced in dollars. Oil's priced in dollars right now. 85% of exchanges of currency are done to US dollars to another currency in the world. Crypto, it's all priced in US dollars. Gold, silver, drugs. Now, if you look on different websites that have gold charts, you'll notice they have a little drop down. You can change that to euro or won or yen. However, what you don't see in the background is it actually is priced in dollars. It takes the value of dollars, converts that to euros, and then it shows you the euro price. So it really still is in dollars. It just does the currency conversion from euro to dollar and then dollar to gold. So it's kind of an illusion there that it's actually in euros. So right now, 64% of all trade is done in US dollars. 64% of the world reserve currency is US dollars. 19 in euros, 5 in yen, 1.5 in won, and these are starting to change, which we'll talk about. Countries use it to back their own currency, and I'll talk a lot about how the US dollar became the reserve currency in a minute. But right now, countries, for every 10 of their units, they have maybe one of ours. It's different for every country. These countries right here, Cambodia, Panama, El Salvador, Ecuador, British Virgin Islands, Zimbabwe, all of these, Palau and Timor-Leste, they all have US dollars. I've been to these right here, and in each one of those, you go to the ATM machine, and out comes US dollars. You want to pay a government fine, you pay it in US dollars. And the whole economy is exactly like if you were here in the United States, it's in US dollars. They might do a little bit different with their coins, because that takes a lot to, you know, move it back and forth to the United States from where they mint it to here. So I actually paid a bribe of $1.50 to a guy who pulled me over for having my headlights on in Cambodia. I guess you can't drive with your headlights on in Cambodia. It's crazy. Unless it's nighttime or unless it's raining. And I argued with him for a long time until I found out, oh, hey, I only own like $1.35. So I just paid it up. And there's countries out there that completely just use 100% US dollar. So you also get the best exchange rate around the world if you're exchanging currency. So I kind of brought a couple currencies to give an example here. If you're a US citizen and you have $13 as a US citizen and you go to Oman, you take it, you give them the $13 and they'll give you 5 Oman riyals in return. Likewise, if you go to Colombia and you take your $13 and you give it to them, they'll give you 41,000 Colombian pesos in return. So now that we've established that it's 5 riyals in Oman and 41,000 pesos in Colombia is both equal to $13. What happens when this guy in Oman comes to Colombia? He takes his 5 riyals over to Colombia and he wants his 41,000. However, the guy exchanging it in Colombia says, what am I going to do with this 5 riyals from Oman? I can't do nothing with that. You know what, I'm not going to give you 41,000. I'm going to give you 26,000. I'm going to give him a completely ridiculous rate because in order to change this back and put it out into the economy from Colombia is an undertaking. So the world reserve currency gets the best exchange rate around the world. It's used everywhere. I can pull out, in any country I go to, I can pull out US dollars and they'll accept them. If I'm in a taxi, he probably won't want to. He'll probably want the local currency. If I give him just a little bit more, then that'll deal with his hassle to have to go and exchange it. But you can do that anywhere in the world. Imagine pulling out 5 Omanian dollars and trying to give that to a taxi. I'll give you 6. He's not going to do it. So, I was going to give you this example also in the photo here. If China wants to get oil from Russia, they have to come up with some type of product from their GDP. They have to come up with gold, they have to do services, they have to export something, they have to sell something, they have to get a hold of US dollars. Once they have those US dollars, they can go to Russia and give them their US dollars and Russia will respond and they'll give them oil. If the United States wants to get oil from Russia, which they don't, but let's just say they wanted to, we don't need to come up with services and sell services. We don't need to sell gold in order to get US dollars. We just go over to a machine, print it off, and then hand it to Russia, and Russia gives us our oil. And that's what we're doing around the world right now. We're just printing stuff off and handing it to countries, and we're getting the return for that. It's one of the benefits of having a reserve currency, yeah.
2 things occurred. One is by a weird law that we have on the books. They bought LNG from Russia and put it into Boston, even with all the other stuff going on the last 12 months with the natural gas. And so, yeah, we handed them our dollars to make sure they took them to fly.
Did we print it before is that what we did? We just printed it, or we sell anything to get those dollars?
Oh, no, we just gave it to them. We just, it was cheap gas, right? And then the other part was that China is now directly taking yuan and handing it to the Russians, and Russians are giving them oil. Now they...
I'll kind of get into that in a little bit also. So, why is the dollar the world reserve currency right now? Well, in 1944, 44 countries got together around the Suez Canal, and this is right after World War II, and they tried to solve the problem of international trade. To have, it was really difficult to figure out what country, what their value was of their currency, and everybody was backing their own currency by gold at at that time. You had to figure out how much gold do you have versus how much currency do you have. It created serious problems with trade around that time. So at that time, the United States had 2/3 of the world's gold in its reserve. So that's when the countries decided that maybe, you know, the United States would be the best way to go. The United States, they backed their US dollar by gold, and so we'll back our currency with the US dollar. And in effect, our currency will also be backed by gold. Well, Britain didn't like that. Keynes, he's an economist. He was really against US dollar as a reserve currency. And actually in these meetings, anytime they brought it up, he wanted nothing to do with it. He didn't want to talk about it. He would protest against it. He thought it was the worst idea. And I don't want to get too much down this rabbit hole because it kind of gets into a little bit of tinfoil hat theories. But some people were thinking that they didn't like it because it allowed their colonies to run a debt, to get capital, to secure capital for development projects. And if they can get these development projects, they can build roads, they can build buildings, they can overcome, and they can start a revolution and become more of a Western society. And that would mean that Britain is losing these colonies, something that they didn't want to happen. Well, look what's kind of happened. Some of these developing countries have grown up, and they've lost them as colonies. So, now, another part of this theory is they had some unregulated gold markets in Britain, and some of the tinfoil hat theory here is that Britain was behind these unregulated markets. They wanted to undermine gold, make it very volatile, so that the dollar would be wouldn't be backed very well with the dollar. I'm not going to get too much into that because there's no proof of this stuff, and it kind of goes into a rabbit hole of some tinfoil hat theory. But what did happen, though, is gold was very volatile. The reasons on why are the tinfoil hat part. But gold was very volatile. And the French demanded all their gold from the United States. They wanted it all back. And when they did this, a lot of other countries were asking for the gold back. A lot of other people were turning in their dollars and demanding their gold for the dollar that they had. In fact, at this time, from the time when they had 2/3 the world's gold reserves, they had lost 90% of that, and the Federal Reserve only had 10% of gold left. So Nixon, he understood something's going on. We need to do something about this. That's when he came on TV, and one of the major reasons also, and we talked about this, is the guns and butter program. In economics, they always use guns and butter in different economic theory. And the difference of guns and butter is more of like, butter, milk, couches, things that is domestic product that improves your economy. Guns are made by the military, used for fighting. They don't actually have any part of the GDP that you send out and sell, unless you're actually selling the guns. So that was actually, it was coined, guns and butter, by a Nazi minister. He was a Nazi minister of propaganda, Joseph Goebbels. He said, "We can do without butter, but despite all our love and peace, not without arms. One can shoot with butter. One cannot shoot with butter, but with guns." So that's what they coined the guns and butter program during the Vietnam War. We spent a lot of money for guns, and we started printing a lot more money. Now we're supposed to be backed by the U.S. by gold. And if we're printing all this money, that means we need to be buying more gold. However, gold was being reduced. So in 1971, Nixon came on TV. It's July of 1971. Nixon came on TV and was known as the Nixon shock. And that's when he detached gold from the US dollar. It used to be 1/35 of an ounce was equal to $1. And he just completely tore that off. They still have gold there, but it's not any direct relation to the US dollar whatsoever. So basically, if you think about this, earlier I had said, during the Bretton Woods Agreement, these countries, 44 of the countries, which now I think there's 109, something like that, are all backing their currencies by the US dollar because the US dollar is backed by gold, thinking that they are all backed by gold. Well, Nixon just cut that off. So now none of the currency in the world is backed by gold unless these countries have gone on their own and put gold under it in their reserves and done their own thing. So that's kind of scary to think about that. Once Nixon took the gold standard away, everybody was already using the US dollar as the world reserve currency. There wasn't another viable alternative right away. There wasn't a huge economic disaster. There was no reason really to change, other than the fact that this probably isn't such a great idea. So everyone decided to stay on it. When we did that, production in the United States, it shrank 25%, over 25%. The reason why is because we control the supply of the money. So if any of you people had a money machine at home and you could just print out US dollars, how many people would be going to work tomorrow? Unless you really love your job and you're doing it because it's your hobby and that's what you strive to do, and you do it for free, most of you probably want to go to work, you would sit at home and just keep on printing out money. Well, that's one of the reasons why production probably shrank in the United States, because in order to, the example I used earlier, in order for us to get oil from Russia, we have to pay US dollars, and we don't have to produce anything to get those US dollars. So that affected production in the United States. Unemployment never rose before 6%, except for the Great Depression. Outside of that, you never saw unemployment over 6%. And now, 1975, 2008, 1985, it's going 8, 10%, and it always goes up over 6%. This is a problem. And it's probably because we don't need to produce anything anymore, because we just print off the money. We don't need to go to work. So we see a lot now without gold. There's a lot more conflicts in the world. The United States is going around being very imperialistic, pushing their ways on many different countries. And I used to think that was really bad. Why do we have to police the world? Why are we spending all this money on policing the world? Well, kind of makes sense, because if we weren't doing that, maybe these countries would have shied away from the US dollar. We're making sure that our interests, our economic interests, and the US dollar's interests are placed in all of these conflicts around the world. We ensure that OPEC, which is an organization that gets together to use the petrodollar, we make sure that they are using the petrodollar. And when things start to seem like they're going another way, like Iraq and Syria and Lebanon and Libya, we seem to get involved in these conflicts. So, I want to talk a little about FATCA. FATCA is a Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. And it sounds kind of crazy, but there's no tinfoil hat stuff. I actually have a video for you. I'll show you about it. Basically what FATCA is the United States went around to all the countries in the world, all the banks in the world, and they said, from now on, if anybody signs up and gets an account with you guys, I need you to report that to us if they're U.S. citizens. And you had to vet these people. You had to make sure that they are not U.S. citizens if you're opening up a bank account for us. And if you don't do that, there's going to be repercussions. And all these banks were like, whatever, we're not going to listen to you. We don't care about that. We said, that's fine. But if you don't do it, then you're going to be cut off from the U.S. financial system. Try being a bank in the world today, and you have nothing to do with the U.S. dollar, with the world reserve currency. It's almost impossible. Not only that, other banks don't want to deal with you because you're not FATCA compliant. So they're kind of afraid to do business with those non-FATCA compliant banks. So banks really want to be FATCA compliant. Now, the way they impose these fees and fines and sanctions against these banks that are not FATCA compliant is through SWIFT. I don't know if anybody in here knows really what SWIFT is. SWIFT is an organization that is in Belgium. And when money is wired around the world, it goes through this organization in Belgium. They deal with where it's coming from, where it's going, and they electronically send it on. Well, the United States has an agreement with SWIFT, and any U.S. wire transaction that goes through SWIFT needs to be sent to Washington, D.C., where they can approve or deny it. Now think about that. That's the world's reserve currency. Any time a deal is done through a wire, Washington, D.C. can get in and they can approve that or they can deny that. And they will do a 30% withholding, and that's taking 30% of the wire that goes through. No bank wants that to happen. So right now, there's 10 million Americans living overseas. I currently have a problem. I'm trying to open up a bank account in Switzerland, but they won't let me do it because I'm a United States citizen. So I'm looking at changing it into my wife's name, which she is a Colombian, but still, she's a US person because she is a resident here in the United States. So it's not just US citizens, it's any US person, meaning US entity. She is also, would be affected by FATCA. Creates all kinds of problems. I'm gonna try and show you this video here. I can't get the Bluetooth speaker going, so I'm going to, let's see if we can hear it. Kind of fun.
All right. Good afternoon, and welcome to the United States Treasury Department November FATCA Q&A session for every non-U.S. bank in the world and every non-U.S. country in the world. In honor of Obama's Open Government Initiative, we're going to be taking questions today in instant message format.
So, to kick it off, what is FATCA?
Well, basically, we don't like the way that you have been handling taxes for American citizens in all of your countries. So, we're going to put the United States Internal Revenue Service in charge. If your banks choose not to cooperate with us, we're going to impose a 30% withholding tax on any activities undertaken by that bank and any of that bank's customers, whether they're American citizens or not.
Wait, what? How can you do that?
15 aircraft carriers, that's how. You're living in our world, bitches, get used to it.
Okay. Can you talk more about what withholding tax means?
Oh, sure. It's just withholding. It's a lot like U.S. income tax withholding, except you don't get any services in return, and there are no refunds.
That sounds terrible. How do we avoid this?
It's easy. All you have to do is just give us any information you have about accounts for U.S. citizens.
Oh, sorry, there's one more thing. Actually, because you're going to have to prove to us that you don't have any U.S. accounts, you're probably just going to have to give us all of the information from all of your accounts.
What? That's ridiculous.
Why? We're great with private information. Just ask Edward Snowden.
How can you possibly think this is okay?
Because we own your asses. Free rides over. Do you have any idea how much it pisses us off when people don't do things our way? We've been carrying the free world for 50 goddamn years, and it is time we got paid.
This seems very familiar, but there's absolutely no way this works with our privacy legislation.
Oh, that's not a problem. For rich countries like yourselves, we are happy to sign an agreement under which you agree to force your banks to give you the information which you will then send to us.
I guess that's possible. You will, of course, give us information on our citizens' bank accounts in the U.S., right?
Oh, well, yeah, that's certainly what the agreement will say.
But good luck getting our bankers and their congressmen to agree to that.
Oh mein Gott, diese Amerikaner spinnen doch.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that?
Oh yeah, that reminds me of something. All of your banks are going to have to sign individual agreements with the IRS in English, and then fill out a whole bunch of forms with us in English.
But we have got tons of American legal and accounting professionals who are eager to work with you.
For just $500 an hour.
But what about emerging economies like us? Our tax ministry and banks can't really afford this sort of thing. I mean, Africa's growing and all, but this could really slow us down.
Well, then get used to only banking in Africa. See, banking is a rich man's game, and we kind of like the idea of keeping it to ourselves. We've got a system, and we're going to set it up right.
Interesting.
What the China? You want some of this?
Oh, not at all. We love it. A one-world taxation system run by the most powerful country is a great idea.
That's right. A one-world system run by the United States of America.
For now.
obviously kind of crazy. Then there's FBAR. FBAR is Foreign Bank Account Reporting. What that is if you're a U.S. person or entity, a resident, a citizen, any type of company, and you have bank accounts that are overseas, you have to notify the IRS of that bank account. And it used to be optional. I don't know why anybody would just give that information because they want to, but it used to be optional. Now it's required. And it used to be $10,000, and now they're talking, if you had $10,000 in that account at any time of the year, you would have to report that. And now they're talking about reducing that all the way down to $0. It's just, you have an account that's overseas, you need to tell the United States government about that account. It doesn't matter what's in it, how much is in it. It's pretty crazy. Now, violations of that, they can take 50% of the account, up to $250,000 fine, up to 5 years in prison per incident. Now, most of these are they come with other charges because there's tax evasion or illicit funds that they're obtaining. So it's always double if you have two crimes that you're doing, one an FBAR crime and you're doing like tax evasion or whatever. So things get doubled. Not trying to say that you should do tax evasion or have illicit funds overseas, but it would become 100% of the account, $500,000 and up to 10 years in prison, plus whatever crime that you have done. They can come after your spouse's assets, also 401k, property. Now, this is, I think, kind of a violation of the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, which is search and seizure. And I had I don't have the exact, I don't know it off the top of my head, but really it says, Fourth Amendment says, the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrant it shall issue but upon probable cause. Well, I mean, there's no probable cause here. They're just forcing everyone to hand over this information about their papers. So if I'm reading this right, it sounds like it's a direct violation of the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. So, sanctions. Now, sanctions, you might see a lot of that in the news right now, especially with Iran. The Iranian sanctions just went into effect on the 5th of November. Now, if you don't really know what's going on, you might have heard of the Iran deal. Many countries in Europe, many countries around the world, and the United States signed a deal with Iran on nuclear and nuclear development within their country, and many other things are in it also. Donald Trump recently pulled out of that, and now he's holding Iran accountable for some of the stuff that was agreed upon in an agreement that he would be able to do. Well, all these other countries, they didn't pull out of it. The UN is kind of shaming the United States for imposing these sanctions on it, and a lot of countries around the world are really upset with the United States because we signed this deal and then we pulled out. I don't want to get too much into the political beliefs if you believe we should have pulled out of it or not. I'm just merely want to show you what sanctions can do to a country, and not only the country of Iran, but other countries around the world. Currently there is a company called Total. It's a French company. And this company is in the middle of a development project in Iran. They've been working on it for a while. And now all of a sudden these sanctions come out, and the United States tells this company in France, you can no longer do anything with oil in Iran because we now have sanctions on it. And the French government's like, wait a minute, Total is a company, it's in France, it's a French company in France. We have an agreement that we signed with Iran. Why are we not able to do business there? Well, it's not only France that's thinking that, it's Germany. There's many different countries around the world that are kind of concerned about this, that the United States is able to dictate international trade through sanctions. Now, they do that through imposing like 30% withholding and things like that through SWIFT transactions that go through the SWIFT system that I told you about earlier. There's many other ways that they do it also, cutting people off from the U.S. system. So in 2017, the Trump administration restricted Venezuela's ability to borrow money. The United States got upset with President Maduro, for his sham elections and the things that he's doing with his citizens there. It's a different problem, it's a really bad problem I'll get into a little bit later. But they cut them off from it. In response, they made a crypto called Petro. It's supposedly backed 1 by 1 with oil and a little bit of gold also. But is yet to be determined if it's actually is being backed by the oil and the gold that they say it is. I didn't do my research really much on that. I would like to know a lot more information about it. So sanctions are a really big thing, and really the way that they keep control of the reserve currency. So let's look at the outlook for the dollar. This is where it starts to get kind of interesting. We're at a 4-year low as a reserve currency. We're losing market share in the world as a reserve currency right now, year after year, for 4 years now. The euro, won, and pound have all increased their share of their position as a world reserve currency in the world today. So China is building a lot of islands in the South China Sea. They're trying to take control of this area right here with the military. Now, let's see if I can get this up here. This is really crazy what they're doing. And I'll get into why they're doing this. If I can pull it up here. So this is a reef that is in the middle of the South China Sea. And look what China did to this reef in less than a year. Over 10,000-foot airport. They have radar. They have a whole port here that they've dredged out, everything. And this isn't the only island. Here's a little map of a bunch of little islands that they're making in this area. All these little red dots here. And some of these, I'm not sure if it's the purple ones, I'm not sure, but they're building a lot of them out there. Here's another one. You can see the dredges out here, pulling sand out and throwing them up onto the reef. Here's one of the islands, the satellite view of the infrastructure they're building. On the left is 2011. They came there in 2015 and doubled the size of it. Here you can see one of the harbors that they have there. Here's another island with a harbor over here, possible radar facility. All centered around the military. None of these are like for people to live on. They're trying to assert their military control in this South China Sea area. So you can go back and, why would they be trying to do that? Well, it's a theory of mine, but they have something called the Belt and Road Initiative. The Belt and Road Initiative is a $1.4 trillion project that China's doing, trying to take global trade. And these black lines here are roads. They want to make them kind of like an interstate system. They're all leading right back to China. You have ports and airports and everything around the world, and they're trying to induce trade to China. Which, another crazy thing that's happening is all imports into China are paid in yuan. They're not paid in dollar, they're now paid in yuan, their local currency. So they've stopped that. It's now yuan. That's losing market share for the US dollar as a world reserve currency. The top 4 banks in the world, the largest ones, are Chinese banks. And now they've launched the petro yuan, kind of like the petrodollar, and they're trying to do trade in oil with the petro yuan. Now that's huge because that's not just transportation. Oil goes into this plastic bottle right here because it takes energy to run the motors and the shipping and everything to make that plastic bottle. And everything that we have is done with motors and energy, and oil's what's backing that. So that's kind of crazy. China is gung-ho about taking over trade, and they hate the US dollar as a world reserve currency. They would love to be in the position that we have. So right now the stock market is at an all-time high. It's crazy gains. If you look at the charts, which I'll show you one a little bit later, it's just gone parabolic. People are dumping their money in. In this 8-year cycle, we're on 10 years. The 8-year cycle is you have about a correction about every 8 years. We haven't had a correction. Year after year for the last 9 years straight, we've been positive for 9 years straight. So it's kind of scary of where we're at, and people have a lot of their money in there. If things come crashing down, that could create a lot of turmoil with the economy. A lot of government spending right now. When recessions happen, governments like to spend money to try and reduce spending in the United States amongst their people. The government likes to create projects, like I don't know if anyone's heard of the Roosevelt, the New Deal created by Roosevelt. Yeah, you've heard of it, or do you have questions?
No, I've heard of it.
Oh, yeah, so it was supposedly supposed to pull the United States out of the depression. So, interest rates hikes, they kill spending. Right now, we're at all-time lows. I don't know what the actual interest rate is as of today, but it's really, really low. We've had zero interest rates for a long period of time, like quantitative easing. If we start having an economic decline, we can't reduce interest rates more in order to induce borrowing. Not only that, we already have so much debt. There's so much student debt that's out there. Millennials, they have all kinds of debt. So good luck trying to convince people to go get more debt in order to pump into this system to keep it going.
So what Paul Krugman says, we can be negative, that's a good idea.
Well, right now in Japan, they're doing a negative, they have negative interest rates in Japan right now.
So explain
And they
what
also-
negative means.
They've been doing negative in Switzerland and Sweden as well.
Uh-huh.
So like, for instance, the Swiss sold bonds with negative interest rates against the Swiss franc
Yeah.
multiple times in the past 5 years.
Mhm.
And my guess is the only way you make money is that the currency was gonna appreciate anyway, so therefore, they're like scraping some money off the table, just to say, you want stability with Swiss francs? you
The whole
buy.
idea behind the negative interest rate is to entice people to go get money and spend it. We need to pump it into the economy, you know, jumpstart it, get it going.
They're
So-
also charging you, where today we get interest, they're gonna make you pay to have.
You put your money in the bank.
That's what negative interest is to the consumer.
Or to
If
give
you have
money.
cash, you gotta pay us to store it in the bank.
Yes, exactly.
And you might couple with some sort of rules that you can't walk around with more than $100 in your pocket.
Yeah. Would you hear that at?
No, that's what they'll do, is they'll say, well, you
You
can't
can't
walk
trade in
around.
cash, they wanna get rid of cash.
You can't walk around with more than $100 cash in your pocket, and you can't withdraw more than $100.
Only 3% of
in
US
your
currency is in
bank.
cash right
Huh?
now. Only 3% of US money is in cash. So if you're,
That's credit cards and electronic money.
it's electronic, the rest is electronic, yeah.
Unprinted.
Our debt right now is $21.6 trillion. Now, debt can be, it's any obligation that the United States government pay out. So that's Social Security, that's, Boeing and Lockheed Martin, we've had claims that have go by them, now we have to pay those people, that's something that's owed. Bonds that people have purchased, we have to, they have interest rates, we have to pay for those. People that are retiring and getting pensions that were state employees, military that gets pensions, and all of their medical insurance and so forth, and hospitals, all of that is part of the debt that we have. This year, we're going to run, it said, in 2019, it'll be a $985 billion deficit. That's not spending, that's deficit, that's the difference in exports versus imports. That's major. And mainly it's because we can just print money and not make products and export them, and just print money. And so that's a lot of where our deficit comes from. It takes $400 billion just to service the interest on our debt. $400 billion, we're at 103% debt to GDP right now. Yeah.
Well, two things. One is the Japanese are like 200% GDP.
No, more.
They're more now.
Last I checked, they were like 250, 260%.
Okay, they're building it up,
Yeah.
yeah. This is, and then the other most interesting thing that happened more recently is the incredible pressure being placed in the Marshall Islands to not have a sovereign-based cryptocurrency. The IMF is now leaning on and saying, no, we don't need to do that. So what is the ulterior motive of this? That will be the tinfoil hat discussion for later.
We need a tinfoil hat presentation. It would be good, actually, I think it'd be kind of.
But the Marshall Islands seems a big deal
Yeah.
because they're like.
Mauritius has gone 100% crypto, I think, now.
Well, I don't know. I know there's been huge pressure on any of the sovereigns to not have a cryptocurrency, which is really interesting
things that are happening, this is a crazy fact that I saw. Look in, what would it take to become part of the European Union? There's reasons why Moldova is not in the European Union, why Turkey is not in it. Turkey has a little sliver that's in Europe, so they're trying to be in there. And it's financial reasons, a lot of it. Well, if the United States, just say we wanted to, and they wanted us to be there, and we wanted to join the European Union, sorry, our debt, our financial system is so out of whack that they would not allow us to join the European Union. So the United States wouldn't even be able to join the European Union right now if it wanted to.
I think we have approximately 8,500 nukes that could say otherwise.
Yeah, that's common, and all the aircraft carriers, yeah.
I'm just saying that if we really want to be somewhere, we can be somewhere if we're willing to pull all the levers.
I'm sure. Well, if the dollar starts tanking, I don't know if we can afford to run those aircraft carriers. Maybe launch a nuke, I don't know.
We'll have to buy a lot of wine.
Yeah, exactly. So I have a video that I'll give you a link to at the end of this presentation, but it's about the aging population, our baby boomers. Families used to have like 5 or 6 kids per family. Now it's like an average, 1 or 2. Maybe it was 4 or 6, something like that. But our population was growing much faster, and you all know about that in the baby boomers. Well, they're starting to retire now. And this video that I was watching goes into the fact that when baby boomers, when they started their retirement back in their 30s, they were thinking that they were going to live into their mid-70s. Well, now life expectancy has gotten better with medical care and surgeries and medicine and so forth, so now they're in their 80s. So now a lot of them are thinking, well, I thought I was only going to have to save until I was in my mid-70s, maybe to 80, but now you're saying it's going to have to be mid-80s. So they're missing out on 5, 10 years maybe they need another 5 to 10 years of savings. So what they've been doing is, instead of taking their money out of the stock market right now and being safe with it because they're about ready to retire, they're thinking, I need to make up for this. I need to put my money into the stock market because my bank account isn't giving me anything. And so a lot of them are in the stock market right now. And if that comes crashing down, it's going to create a huge problem with them. Also, when these baby boomers, when they go into retirement, they're going to stop working. They're going to stop spending. A lot of people in retirement, they spend a lot less. And that's no good for an economy when people stop spending. And when you have a major group, a major population, such as baby boomers, that exit the market and stop spending, that's really going to hurt our GDP even more. So there's a whole video that explains it. That's really good. It's probably like 45 minutes long, so I'm not going to get too much into it. I'll give you the link. Brazil and Uruguay, all bilateral trade with other countries, they've decided they're no longer going to use the US dollar for trades between countries. We're going to use either mine or yours to do these trades. And that's Brazil and Uruguay are both doing that. So the European Union right now, they're trying to take over a lot of trade and create organizations to get rid of the to get rid of the dollar in trade because of U.S. sanctions. They're really upset. This whole Iran thing I was talking about, they're starting to get really upset. They're trying to create organizations and the deal. They're saying that the euro is strong enough that it can handle this trade, and it's liquid enough that they can do the trade. So Russia, just last month, Russia dumped 84% of your U.S. dollars. They got mad and just dumped it. Remember, they had dollars backing the ruble. Well, they just got 84% of it. They just dumped it and they increased the value of their gold. They bought a bunch more gold. And this is kind of a crazy quote here from a Russian foreign minister, Sergei Lavrov. He said, "I strongly believe that the abuse of the role the U.S. dollar plays in an international currency will eventually result in its role being undermined."
Right.
Well, that's their goal. Yeah. No, that's their kind of their goal too, yeah.
They would not have done it. I don't think that some of the stuff we've done, I think it's just a point counterpoint. I don't think they would have bothered, except these new rules are so onerous.
You sanction, yeah.
I mean, not just the sanctions, but also FATCA and the rest of it.
Yeah, all of it. Yeah, it all plays together where people are.
If
If we push our hand too strong,
like what Henry Ford said, they know what's going on, therefore, this is their revolution.
Exactly, yeah.
I was just talking to a couple of friends that the word balanced budget is not an election cycle anymore. And I don't, it's like, how long has it been like that? Where it's gone. It used to be balanced budget.
Yeah, no,
one's
it's just,
talking
yeah, we're not
about
gonna balance it.
Yeah.
Now basically, it's
impossible.
increasing.
Yeah.
It's like, take out loans, take debt, print more, we need to keep this thing going. We didn't learn anything from 2008. All we've done is we did learn one thing from 2008, is if you have a bubble and you want to recover from it, you just make a bigger bubble, and you just keep adding to more and more of it. That's what I think we're learning. See how far that goes. So yeah, when will the US dollar collapse? Well, I started asking myself this question. Now, if anyone says tomorrow, or 3 years from now, 3 years and 6 months, they don't know what they're talking about, because you can't actually peg it. It's all in theory. But one of the best theories I found is explained here in this picture. There needs to be at least two conditions that make it possible. And I think those two conditions are an underlying weakness in the current system that we have now, and then a viable alternative that we can go to. That makes it possible. That doesn't actually make it happen. We could have a weakness and a viable alternative, but everyone has to agree to change it. Something has to push it over. And that's when there's some type of event that triggers, confidence in this, in the reserve currency that already has a weakness. You get 3 of those lined up, and it's going to happen. So right now, I talked a lot about these weaknesses. One is the United States, pushing their strong hand, debt that we have. In the mid-2000s, our debt was only $6 trillion. And in 3 years, we increased that to $15 trillion in only 3 years. And that's when we saw a 54% decline against the euro. The euro's having problems, so it's come back down. Now we're at 21.6. I need to update that from when I typed it in there because it keeps on going up. So that's the weaknesses that are below the dollar. That's a lot of what I've been talking about. Now, an economic event that would trigger this collapse could be something like China popping, Japan popping, having major economic problems. Now, we kind of feed off of China, and China feeds off of us. China does not like us as the world reserve currency. They hate the dollar. They would love to destroy it. However, if they destroy the dollar, they destroy us. And if they destroy us, they just kill their #1 client. Their #1 customer is us. So we kind of feed off of, it's like catch-22 for them right now. Japan is having major issues, just like we were talking about earlier. They have a debt to GDP of 250, 260, some I've heard all the way up to 300%. It's crazy. In fact, they have one of the same problems I was talking about earlier, an aging population that are now into retirement, and they're exiting from the economy. In fact, I saw one really funny statistic. It said, in Japan right now, there are more sales for adult diapers, like the pens, than there are baby diapers. That's just crazy. So Japan's having to provide for all these people. So if that continues and they pop, that could be one of these economic triggering events that send us into a spiral. And together they own $2 trillion of reserves in the U.S. $2 trillion of reserves of U.S. dollars. So a viable alternative. Now let's talk about viable alternatives. Of course, we're all here in a crypto meeting, so cryptocurrency. Has anybody heard of BACT? Anybody know about BACT?
I've heard of it.
You guys, so what BACT is BACT is created by ICE. It's an organization that's created by ICE. If you don't know what ICE is the parent company to the New York Stock Exchange. They've teamed up with Microsoft and Starbucks, and they want to create an ETF. Now, there's kind of some theories that are going around the previous ETFs for cryptocurrency have been denied because somebody as strong as ICE has trying to been holding them back because they have this idea and they want to be the one that comes up. Whether you believe that or not, it doesn't matter. Now they're trying to launch in December an ETF for cryptocurrency. Now, what this ETF does is it allows major institutions to, it gives them an avenue of investment into cryptocurrency. Right now, some of them can't do it because of regulations and of how their company's structured. They cannot jump into cryptocurrencies even when they want to. So with this ETF, we might see a flood of capital coming in. So I think in order for there to be a viable currency, we need something that has a solid avenue of investment, not just, hey, go to Coinbase and buy Bitcoin and there you go. I think there needs to be something more solid like an ETF. So I don't think we're really there at this point yet without an ETF, at least for the United States, but we have to remember there's a whole world out there that can invest also. So, oh, you can see here, right here is like 1960 or something like that, and then that's where we're at right now. I mean, you can see how parabolic that we've gone. Who in their right mind would be thinking now's the best time to just throw all your money into the market? This looks like the Bitcoin chart almost, except for this here. So we all know what happened with Bitcoin. Now, I'm not saying that it can't go higher. It just might. It actually, this drop that we've had is starting to come back, which creates more kind of, more people are starting to think, hey, maybe this isn't going to stop. Oh my gosh, let's keep our money in. And they're all technical analysis is out the window and they're throwing more and more money at it. Well, what happens when people don't have any more money to throw into it? Maybe print more and give it out to people, but at some point in time, that has to come back down. So that might be, a triggering event that happens, and it also is kind of an underlying weakness in the dollar, because if this comes crashing down, we're going to have a major problem with the dollar also, I think. So.
Which agency is that?
What's that?
Which agency is that?
Oh, this is the, I'm sorry, this is the SPX, it's the.
Standard Poor's.
Yeah.
So it's Standard Poor's 500 or something like that.
Mm-hmm. So, can you run faster than 90% of the people out there? Maybe not. No, you don't actually have to run fast, but the banks hold roughly 10% of their deposits. Everything else is out on loan. So if there's a run on the bank, theoretically, only 10% of people will get their money out of the bank, and the other 90% would just be out of luck. So I was doing a lot of research on the internet, and I came across this story about this guy in Florida. He was an elderly guy, and he wanted to get his money out of the bank. It was $300,000. He called the bank and said, I'll be there in 2 days. They're like, whoa, no. He's like, yeah, I'm getting my money out. I want it out. I'll be there in 2 days. I'm coming. I want $300,000. Well, when he showed up, they said, well, we can't do this. And they're like, what do you mean? It's my money. He's like, well, no, we have to think about the safety of customers. We have to think about the safety of employees here. And if you're walking out with $300,000, he's like, I don't care. It's my $300,000. I want my $300,000. Deal with it. It's mine. And they're like, well, how about, this could take like 14 days. How about you take a little now, you take a little bit later. How about we do a wire transfer? You want a cashier's check? He's like, no, I don't want any of this stuff. I want my $300,000. Now, I'm not saying that you should go home and, pull out $300,000, demand this. But it was the fact that he couldn't just get his money. And he had a real serious problem with the bank that took well over a week in order to get his money out of there. So I saw this, I experienced this when I was also living in Florida. I went to Chase, and I tried to get out $10,000 in cash. And I'm kind of putting something called a mattress strategy meeting. She's like, well, what are you doing with this money? Are you saving this? And I was like, well, does it matter what I'm doing with this money? Do I have to tell you? It's my money. And she's like, yeah, I know. It's just, it's a lot of money. We just want to make sure that you're safe with it and your investments. I was like, listen, if I want to take it home and I want to put it in my bathtub and play Scrooge with it and throw it all over the place, that's my business. I want my money. I want it now. So they finally gave me my $10,000, and I went and bought a car from the guy who didn't want it back or anything like that. So now, there can also be government regulations and decisions from the government that can stop you from getting your money out. And I'll talk a little bit more in just a second. But, in these situations, if everyone's running to the bank to get their money out, don't have to worry about it because you have the FDIC. They guarantee up to $250,000. Don't have to worry about that. Because if everyone in here right now, if I'm the FDIC, and everyone in here loses their money, you can just step right on over here, I have a printer, and I can print out, how much did you lose, how much did you lose, I'll just print it out and I'll give that to you, and just start printing the money. So, to me, I think it's kind of a joke that they kind of make insurance behind it. I think if the FDIC was really gonna do some type of insurance, they should do some type of value at a certain date of gold, and then that's what they would give you when things collapse. So, and 3% of money is paper, so I don't know how that applies to the 10% that they have on hand, because a lot of it's electronic deposit. So when you're actually wanting that money right now, they only have 3% of the world's currencies in paper. So I don't know if this regulation, it's actually a U.S. regulation that says that they have to have 10%. So I'm not sure if that's 10% true. So I'm going to show you this here. This one was on February 2009, $550 billion was taken out of money market accounts in 1 to 2 hours.
On Thursday at about 11 o'clock in the morning, the Federal Reserve noticed a tremendous drawdown of money market accounts in the United States to the tune of $550 billion was being drawn out in a matter of an hour or two. The Treasury opened up its window to help. They pumped $105 billion in the system and quickly realized that they could not stem the tide. We were having an electronic run on the banks. They decided to close the operation, close down the money account, and announce a guarantee of $250,000 per account so there wouldn't be further panic out there. And that's what actually happened. If they had not done that, their estimation was that by 2 o'clock that afternoon, $5.5 trillion would have been drawn out of the money market system of the United States, would have collapsed the entire economy of the United States, and within 24 hours, the world economy would have collapsed. Now
So yeah, it's kind of crazy that we came within hours of something like that happening. Everyone remembers that here. But to actually see a congressman talking about, he believes that within 24 hours, the world economy would have collapsed, and by that afternoon, the U.S. economy would have actually collapsed if they didn't shut it down. So when you're going to try and get your money out of the bank, and they shut it down, you can see the problem there with the banks. And this happened in 1929 also. I don't know if it was actually 1929, it was somewhere in the 30s or 1929 where they were running
That was the.
Was it 29 or was it in the 30s when it?
Well, it had, no, it was multiple times, there was multiple runs, yeah, the biggest ones were, there was one in 33, there was one in, in 32, and then that's when they had the gold standard, when the private ownership of gold changed. There's a fair amount of farmers that, for instance, took their gold, they were supposed to turn in, and not turn it in.
So this isn't something that's only happened a long time ago. Yeah, what's up?
I was just gonna say, we're about 10 minutes after. You can kind of summarize maybe your last couple of
Yeah,
slides.
let me just jump through here.
And do some Q&A maybe real quick.
Yeah, I wanted to get to the crypto part. Let me get to, come to this. So, the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, 1904, they said, when you write a check, there must be sufficient funds in your account to cover the check. But when the Federal Reserve writes a check, there is no bank deposit on which that check is drawn. When the Federal Reserve writes a check, it's creating money. So they're just, to me, that's a tulip. It's a Ponzi. It's the dollar has no backing. They can just write it whenever they want to. So crypto as a reserve currency. Crypto is finite. There's no more printing. Bitcoin has 21 million of them. You can't make more of them. You can send it to anyone regardless if you're friends with the United States or the IRS. You control 100% of your wealth. There's no more major fees from any middlemen, fraudsters, banks, people trying to get in between you like Swift and so forth. It's open 24 hours. Right now, if I go to the bank, they're not open. I can't pull out a bunch of cash. But Bitcoin is 24 hours. There's no more tracking with like FBAR and FATCA. You do have a blockchain, but you can use privacy coins, as Joe was talking about not too long ago. It's hard for governments to confiscate that. So this leads into some bad issues also. You have capacity issues, like we saw in December 2017. Fees went up. because a lot of people were using it, there wasn't as many miners, the fees just went crazy, everything almost, came to like 3-4 hours per transaction time, so things got really bad then. How will countries get their tax money if everything's done in crypto? They could try maybe do a sales tax and force people maybe to do it with fiat. There's some resolution to these, but these are just some questions that are coming up. How do you confiscate illegal crypto? You bust a drug dealer, how do you get his crypto from him? Technology with elderly, that are still writing checks, get them on a crypto system. Get my dad to deal with crypto. It's really difficult for him to do that. So we need to have technology that comes about and solves some of those issues. Infrastructure changes. So you have point of sale machines that need to go out and replace the current ones that we have. Theft of institutional money. What happens if someone gets in and steals Amazon's crypto keys? Somehow they get a hold of it and they steal the money from Amazon. Like the company's reserve money. Does Amazon collapse because one hacker got that one access to that one account? Those are concerns. Exchanges in stocks. We saw that with Mt. Gox, a lot of hacking and so forth. What happens in these situations in an economy where everything's run on crypto, so on tax it? What happens when there's no internet or electricity? When I'm in the middle of the desert and I want to give someone $10 for that bottle of water. I'm sure I can write a transaction down on a piece of paper and then later I can get someplace and I can broadcast that on the network. But how do I know that the transaction was correct and he actually had the money if we don't have electricity out in the middle of the desert? These are things we need to overcome. Now there's some kind of gray area too. If we're switching over to Bitcoin or cryptocurrency as the world reserve currency, what happens if it's too rapid, it goes real quick? There could be a lot of unrest. Next thing you know, nobody has any money, nobody has crypto except for people here. So these people are going to go insane, they're going to go crazy, it's going to be complete unrest. There's going to be a switch in wealth ownership. So people who are holding all these dollars have a lot of money, and then all of a sudden, guess what? Now people who have crypto have the money, and it would be, if we did a rapid switch. I think there would be some type of confusion in decentralizing and centralized government crypto. I think the government would come out and maybe say, hey, we have a US crypto coin, and it's completely centralized, and oh yeah, by the way, we can just make new coins the way we want. The same concept is what we have now with fiat. They'll just use some of the features of the cryptocurrency that we have right now. What about social programs? It'll be kind of hard to fund things like welfare, things like
industrial complex.
yeah, there's a lot of different social programs that we have right now. Housing assistance, what would a country be like under crypto, trying to fund those things? How about large projects? We need liquidity to build another 15 aircraft carriers or whatever. You can't just invent more crypto, you have to actually have it or earn it first. There's no tinkering with the system, so you can't add more crypto to it. You can't tinker with it like we do now with the dollar. You could raise interest rates on loans, but the money supply is solid. You can't change it. Banking and fiat support systems would be removed. So the ones that we have now for banks that support our current system, they could get removed and we'd have to change those over to support a cryptocurrency type system. That might see a bunch of jobs just go bye-bye instantly. So that might create some unemployment issues. So these are things that I think we need to deal with cryptocurrency being the world reserve currency for this happen. Not only the positive, but negative, and some things that are kind of in between. I'm not going to spend much time here. These are two economists. Keynes, he's an economist that is kind of basically on the system of the US dollar. What we have now that we can pull and push on the system to manipulate it to do what we want it to do to try and make growth keep going forward. And Hayek, he's more like a crypto type. I think he'd be more for crypto. He's about free economy. Let the economy do what it wants to do. If it wants to go down, it needs to go down for a reason. If it's going to go up, it's going to go up for a reason. So those are two economists. Here's a little rap video that's really funny that shows both of their views and their rapping. So investment advice. Yeah, there's none given here, of course. I don't give any investment advice. I had a blank slide, so I just filled it up with a bunch of stuff here. So I just added this one here, career expert. I think that can be really good. If we have an economic crisis, I think being an expert in your career is going to be detrimental, because they're just going to get rid of all the amateurs. Why are you going to pay people to learn? They want the experts in those situations. So I think that was investing in yourself can be a very, very good one. All of these have problems. They have very little debt in Norway. Singapore, they have a lot of money that's put in there, seen as a tax haven, so it could still have issues. So there's definitely some risk in those. But if you see the dollar kind of pull back and not collapse or something, you might see something, some value that's held with some of those. It's just an idea. Commodities also, investing in actual something physical with gold. I mean, obviously Bitcoin and different types of cryptos are all ideas that you can use when you give yourself your own crypto advice. And I'd like to show you the links. If you want, you can take a picture of this. They're all really good links that are out there. And the coming retirement crisis, I think, is a really, really good one. I think everyone in here should watch that one. And also a good overview of how the US dollar is created from thin air. Both of these are really, really good. Some of the videos, one or two of them, I had in here that like FATCA explained. If you want to get into other different types of areas other than the US dollar, there's some different links on buying crypto, foreign currencies, silver, commodities, and so forth.
Can you post this on the slide?
Yeah, I can put that on the slide, of course. Yeah. So, there's a lot of information here, and like you said, we're kind of getting very short on time. I could have probably made this longer by doing more research into different things and going down rabbit holes that would have been taking this even more. I'm trying to sum up basically the history of the US dollar and economics in, about an hour. I don't think that's possible. So, yeah, questions would be great. Yeah.
So have you actually done all these non-dollar, exchanges between two different foreign countries before?
That's one of the things I'm trying to set up in Singapore right now, so I can grab me some Norwegian crowns. I'm not going to go haywire in it, but I think it would be good to have some of those. I'm an angel investor in a commodity. Drew, he has a system that he's doing in Puerto Rico with lumber and sand, and that's kind of commodities. I'm in Bitcoin. I have Cardano, EOS, Monero. I have a lot of altcoins. I'm not trying to shill any single coin. I have a house. I have gold and I have silver. So yeah, pretty much almost all of them except for these two, and that's just because of FATCA and FBAR that I can't get into them because it's hard for me to open up an account to actually buy them. So if I want them, I gotta fly there and exchange my money for them. Or I go to the bank here and they're gonna take a huge percentage for me doing the exchange rate here, which I want to physically hold it. So, yeah, I'm trying to be a career expert in technology, so, and programming. So hopefully if things go down, I'm doing some other things that can kind of protect me. So, yeah, what's up?
We have a question from online. Somebody wants to know, how do they decide to print money?
How do they decide to print money?
Yeah.
That's a really good question. Well, I don't know. I don't know how they actually just up and decide that they're going to print it. I think it's very secretive on when they print. You can't even really go into the Federal Reserve. They won't let you. Germany, if you want to look at this video right here, Germany stored 50-some% of their gold in the Federal Reserve, and they wanted to go in and have more information about their gold, and they wanted to take some of their gold back. And the United States was like, whoa, hold on, let's just slow down here. And they said, well, how about we just come and audit it and look at it? First of all, they're like, no, nobody's allowed in the Federal Reserve. We're very secretive. Nobody can come in here and know what we have here. They really pushed because they didn't think that they had to go in there. They finally made it in there, and they allowed them only to see one room that didn't have all of their gold, it was just one room that they could see it. And that's when Germany said, well, we want all of our gold back, we want 100% of it. And they said, okay, yeah, it'll take about 7 years.
That's right.
7 years. Now, they actually did get it to them. It took 6 years. So then the Federal Reserve was like, look at that, we did it early, 6 years, yeah, somebody give us a pat on the back, isn't this awesome? Well, there's a conspiracy theory out there. Well, guess what? During that time, there was a lot of money that was printed. A lot of it was printed. Well, why was that money being printed? Maybe it's because they didn't have gold and they had to go out and they had to buy that gold. And so they went out and bought it over those 6 years and put it into the Federal Reserve. So it's not exactly shows they're printing money because of this, but one of the reasons that they do print money is to give to the banks that are running out of money that can't loan out to people. And so some of the banks will request money and they'll give it to them.
Well, there's lots of interesting questions. There was a couple of large confiscations. One of them was Iraq, when Saddam Hussein was taken out of power.
Oh, yeah.
And the other one was Muammar Gaddafi, who had a gold dinar. And there was a nice picture of him with U.S. soldiers and a large cache of gold. And nobody really explained where that gold really is. Maybe they said, well, we're going to put it in a safe place for the future government or whatever, but a safe
Like
place.
the Federal
Maybe
Reserve.
some of that safe place happened to be going back to Germany.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a year early.
So,
Does anybody hold gold? Is anybody going back to the gold standard? Like as a country, like is Germany like, no, we're gonna hold our own gold?
yeah, I was just doing some research on this. Lebanon actually has the most amount of gold backing their currencies, 54% gold. Yeah, Lebanon. However, Lebanon has other issues with, they have a lot of debt that's there, and they have political turmoil all the time. So when I was doing some research on, hey, where can I put some of my money that would be safe? Well, I saw Lebanon, I'm like, this is, I don't know about doing that exactly. But I was reading about it, and they have 54% gold backing. It's just, I don't trust the government in the turmoil that's in the region right now to put my money there. I think it'd be ridiculous. So. But yeah, so Lebanon's one of them. There's other countries that are out there too, so.
Is there an international option to countries being in charge of the reserve currency? Is there like a
IMF?
money, thank you.
Yeah, the International Monetary Fund, they are the ones who, they're responsible for these 44 countries. Actually, it's 109 now, I think. They're responsible for monitoring them and helping them tweak their economies so that it would have been properly backed by gold. In fact, part of the Bretton Woods Agreement is they said if any country decides to inflate their currency by more than 1.5%, they have to get permission from the IMF. Furthermore, if they inflate it for more than 8%, then all the countries that are in the agreement have to approve that that country can inflate by more than 8%. Shortly thereafter, Britain inflated by 30% with Truman backing him, and it's like, it goes into another conspiracy theory. Yeah.
That gets back to the Marshall Islands and their crypto sovereigns they're working on, and their government being pushed extremely hard by the IMF specifically to not do it. To just basically say, and then you can read a great article about the situation with Germany and the gold on Financial Times. That's available online. You can search for that.
Is there? Yeah.
It's a very detailed article. It's very recent.
Yeah, this one here is just this is a short video about it. It's nothing intense, but I mean, I recommend that everybody does their own research into this stuff. There's so much information that you have economists that study this constantly, and they still probably haven't even touched the tip of the iceberg on everything that really happens everywhere. So, yeah. Anybody else?
What is your personal motivation? I want to commend you on the presentation, first of all, but what is why are you so interested in this?
Why? Well, in 2008, I saw everything, come down, and I just didn't have as much money as I do now in order to go all in. And so I've been watching the markets over a period of time and waiting for things to drop. And now I'm seeing things get more and more and more built up, where it's closer to a bubble or a pop or whatever you want to call it, closer to that time where things go down. So I've been doing a lot of research to protect my money so that when things do happen, I have a way to jump in and capitalize on that. So, I mean, nobody knows when it's going to happen, and nobody knows how bad it's going to happen, or if it completely collapses or partially. But that's what's been motivating me mainly. And I'm invested in crypto, and I would love to see some type of switch to crypto. I mean, I think it was said if you have, right now, if you have 0.2 of a Bitcoin, I think someone was talking about, or maybe I saw it online, then you'll be one of the top 1% or 2% in the world.
Yeah, I think it's the top 2%.
Was that Steve Lee who was talking about that?
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, 0.2 of a Bitcoin, so it's like, wow. So if I have 0.4, does that put me in the top, 0.01, so.
I can tell you, I'm Brent's best friend. I'm watching him do a lot of different things, but when he gets invested in it, it doesn't matter if it's this or anything, he's very motivated in everything that he does, that he's interested in. So that's probably one of the reasons when he dives into something, it's 110%.
Well, and just to follow up, there's our so-called stable coins. And I've done a little looking into those. But so far, I haven't found any, I mean, some are pegged to gold, some are pegged to the dollar. But the gold and the dollar are not good measures of value anymore, because we print dollars, or we raise or lower the value of the dollar to help our export industry. And gold, when the Russians need money, they just mine some or they sell some, so they can control the price of gold that way. Whereas a stable Bitcoin or a stable crypto could, could just be totally detached from any of that, were if it were not pegged to one of the known commodities. Now, there is one, and maybe someone can help me, that they, as part of their smart contract, say they can control the supply of the coin, kind of the way a central bank might.
Well, I think, is it Ripple?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ripple, it's not finite, they're releasing some over a period of time. Ripple's a whole other story. I think Ripple themselves, they own, what is it, like 40% of the coin that's out there, so much of it. I wouldn't go near calling that any type of stable coin for me personally.
Just got in the world for a day when Ripple went up to like $3.
I think, one of the quotes that I had in the beginning here, I can throw those back up real fast. No, I can't remember who had said it, but someone said, let me control the money supply, and you can make all the laws that you want.
Yeah.
And it's make whatever law you want. I don't care about control life.
It sounds like Rothschild or something.
Huh?
It sounds like Rothschild.
Yeah, I think it was Rothschild. I wish I had the exact quote here, but I mean, that's true. And so, like with something like Ripple, I mean, you're controlling, if you have personally half of it, I mean, you control half of it. Let them control the money supply, and you can do whatever else you want.
I think that's the other stable coins, the Gemini and a couple of other stable coins that are being put out there now in the marketplace. I think their purpose is to try to offset what Ripple's done, because a lot of people don't accept Ripple being in that much control.
Yeah.
And so they want to have that one-for-one exchange. And the question now is, how does a legitimatized stable coin like like what Gemini is doing affect or interact with those regulations? Because hypothetically, somebody could move $1 million very quickly through that system. The question is whether they,
Well, we talked about having, earlier before the presentation, we talked about one of the ideas of having a presentation on stable coins, because for that, what I'm wondering is how many people think that Bitcoin right now is in a position where it could be the world reserve currency. And with its current state, you know, Steve Lee, he talked about in the last presentation, if you want to hear, Steve Lee is he's the former director of Google Maps and Google Glass. And he said that, lost my train of thought here. He said, he said that Bitcoin has a lot of, they're trying to do Lightning Network, and they're building a lot of things to make it so that next December, or the next time something happened like December of 2017, it should be smooth sailing, or that's not proven yet. We haven't actually put that to the test. So I don't personally think it's there yet.
If you're the world currency owner, the US government, what makes you think they would let Bitcoin function at all? They will, CIA will hack in, break the code, they'll do anything they need to do to destroy it.
Well,
why would they want their own? So you see Venezuela's got this money. Venezuela's got their country coin backed by the petrodollar. I foresee something along that line, which would be more nationalized Bitcoins, where we're still trading in whatever country's Bitcoin that is, and so you still have an exchange. And it's
so it's a centralized crypto.
That's right, and it's controlled by the government, and the government.
How is that different than the dollar?
It isn't. That's the whole point. That's exactly my point. We know what we want, but the government's not gonna let that happen.
Yeah, I think that they may try that, right, because I think that there's even efficiencies to do that. They might try to do a sleight of hand to make people think that, oh, we gave you that, but it's not a competitor to real money.
Well,
and
perception.
So,
That's one of the things that we hear confusion between decentralized and centralized government cryptos, because you might have the United States government come out and try and manipulate everyone into believing, hey, this is a great cryptocurrency. You guys have been talking about Bitcoin and all this stuff, but we're going to make you one.
Okay, so the IMF puts out a crypto coin, the IMF.
Exactly.
It exists because all the other countries put their money in it. The IMF goes broke regularly. We need more money. So all the countries have to put money in out of their coffers to make the IMF exist. But the IMF is a conceivable world currency Bitcoin.
So what you're really talking about,
the government's still going to control it.
You should do some research on Keynes and Hyatt, because we've had this type of the Keynesian economic system ever since they had the
World War II.
Yeah, World War II.
About every 50 years.
So, and we've been pulling on it and everything, and we're talking really about changing to a Hayekian type of economic system, which we don't really have right now, which we've had a long time before in the past. A lot of people say, well, because of the electronic systems that we have now, our market's completely different than it was back then. So none of that history applies to us now, and we need to do Keynesian economics where we can control everything. I don't know. I'm kind of saying it's about time for the Hayek type of theory there.
All right, let's wrap it up there. I'm sure Brent will be around for more questions. Can we get a round of applause for Brent? Thank you very much. You did an excellent job. As I said at the top, I mean, this is kind of, it's different than the normal crypto topics that we discussed, but this is, like I said, this is the reason that Bitcoin was invented. These are the conversations that these people were having in the 90s, into the 2000s, talking about these types of powers and these systems of control that are placed on us. So it's interesting to know, and it plays a lot into the story of Bitcoin and why it's created and the entire space behind it. So thank you again, Brent. This is the last meeting for this month because of Thanksgiving. So our next meeting will be December 13th. And as Brent mentioned, we might be going over stable coins. Make sure you either get on our newsletter or follow us on Meetup, and we'll post all the details about that event. I don't think we have anything else for this evening, so